guys, so it is Wednesday evening. It is about just after 5 o'clock right now, and I've gotten home within the last 20 minutes or so, and I wanted to catch you guys up a little bit because for the last 2 weeks I have been reading the Morganville Vampire series and had planned to do a vlog series on them of me, doing what I had expressed before I had planned, where I would be reading the books and then telling you guys my thoughts as it was going through, and then each time I finished a book. For the first week that I actually filmed everything, I thought I had everything together, and I downloaded everything to my laptop, and I went to edit the video, and all of my footage was gone. I don't know where it went, I don't know what happened to it, but all of it disappeared, and that was as of the 30th of October, which that was the day that Robert and I had decided to go. We were going to a concert. In the second week worth of footage, I had essentially started it from that day and had given everybody a catch-up of the first two books that I continued to read, which were The Dead Girls Dance, which was book 2, and book 3, Midnight Alley. And then within that week, I ended up finishing Feast of Fools, which was really good. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't like the way that the vlog turned out because it just was kind of crap. And then I also ended up talking about both The Dead Girls Dance and Midnight Alley kind of at length within my October wrap-up, which had been posted shortly after the 30th. I haven't really been able to pick anything up since then. I've gotten through a couple audiobooks over it so far this week, but I haven't picked anything up physically because this week's been kind of weird. Yesterday on Tuesday was Robert and I's anniversary, so we went out to dinner and it was just been weird. Monday night I wasn't feeling great, and so I just wanted to sit and relax and just snuggle on the couch. And then, like I said, we went out to dinner last night for our anniversary, so we weren't back until almost 9 o'clock, and then both Robert and I were not feeling very well. We've actually today been getting a lot of snow. Typically when the weather changes, I get really, really sick. I start to have bad allergies, and it makes my stomach hurt a lot of times. Where I am at now is I have Lord of Misrule next. As far as my thoughts for Feast of Fools, like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. It is so far the best in the series. It was very much a turning point because in the Morganville Vampire series, there's a lot of turning points that happen throughout the series because there are various turning points for different things that are happening. In The Dead Girls Dance, we have a turning point because Shane's father gets into the mix, and it's become apparent that there is a group of people that are wanting to kill off the vampires that are in Morganville for a very specific set of reasons. And so that leads to a whole climactic event that happens that leads into the third book, which essentially goes into how Claire starts to become more involved with the vampire community and kind of starts being able to get access to more information about some of the things that the vampires are doing within this town. And then Feast of Fools essentially brings around this man named Mr. Bishop, who is supposedly the founder's father. He brings with him a lot of bad juju. He is a bad guy through and through, and everybody knows it, and everyone's afraid of him, but they know that he is planning something essentially to bring Morganville down, and the whole team essentially is trying to figure out how to stop him if they can. And that's a whole other turning point because in the Morganville Vampire series, the idea of Mr. Bishop is essentially cataclysmic, and he is essentially considered a bringer of death because it is not the first time that he has basically made a plan to completely destroy an area of vampires that may not have gone the way that he wants. The idea of the kind of stakes being raised was really a big point within that novel, and it's because obviously we have this character who's come in who's basically known for really causing major damage to places he goes to, and everyone's really on edge. No one really knows what to do. The vampires are not really giving Claire or her friends any knowledge as to what they can do to help if they can. So it was really interesting. I also feel with especially how Midnight Alley and Feast of Fools are written, the writing is so much better. You can tell that these two books specifically is a major shift in the writing style from Glass Houses and The Dead Girls Dance. You can tell there's been a lot of growth between the two sets of books because both of the first two books are kind of more written juvenilely. They're kind of more leaning towards the younger YA spectrum. You can easily tell that because the language is kind of juvenile, and there's a lot of jokes that are made that are kind of more, I would say, for the ages of 14. It's very much freshman of high school humor. But then you get into books 3 and 4, and they're starting to actually show that there is higher stakes coming into the story. things are a lot more serious, and so the tone of the writing and the tone of the plot and everything does shift towards that idea that things are really screwed up right now, and they're going to continue to be screwed up, so we better actually get serious about this shit kind of thing. And I feel like that's come with Rachel over the years, having definitely developed her writing and having gone through more time within these books, because books 1 and 2 I think came out in 2005 and 2006, and then books 3 and 4 I think both came out in 2007, and then Lord of Misrule and Carpe Corpus, which are books 5 and 6, both came out in 2009. So between book 4 and 5 there's a bit of a 2-year gap. So my expectation going into Lord of Misrule is that the writing is going to actually continue to get crisper. It's going to continue to have that very serious tone, considering the idea of the stakes being raised, because Bishop does play into Lord of Misrule as well. Also, we get Mirren a lot within Feast of Fools, who came in Midnight Alley, and Mirren's role in Feast of Fools is very different, and Claire actually starts to really delve into a lot about how to help him, because she finds out in Midnight Alley that there's a sickness with the vampires that is being really, really close to taking them over, and so she has to try to figure out a way to cure them, and she thinks she might have in A Feast of Fools, and that's kind of expanding on that idea, and that continues actually throughout the whole series. Like, that is a really huge underlying thing within the whole series, is Claire's endeavor to help the vampires, even though she doesn't really like them, kind of thing. But Mirren's kind of one of those characters that she kind of can't help but really like, because he's very smart. He's one of the only people that she feels like understands her in a lot of ways with her intellect, and she truly thinks he's not that bad of a guy, as bad as he makes himself out to be a lot of times with his sickness. There's just so much. There's so much that I have to talk about that I feel like I have to like crash course you guys with, because I haven't been able to actually get any of my vlogs to work for this, so I'm sorry. As far as Lord of Misrule, the synopsis kind of goes like this. In Morganville, violent black clouds promise a storm of devastating proportions. As student Claire Danvers and her friends prepare to defend Morganville against the elements, both natural and unnatural, the unexpected happens. Morganville's vampires begin to vanish one by one. Discovering why leads Claire to one last choice: swear allegiance to Bishop or die. So this is kind of, it's continuing the idea of Bishop. Like, Dead Girls Dance followed really only the idea of Shane's father in one book, and he was kind of mentioned in book 3, but not to the extent that he was in book 2. Bishop's storyline, I think, takes place over, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 books, because I think even Carpe Corpus doesn't fully finish the idea of Bishop, like that whole storyline. Like, I really think that it's got to be like 3 or 4 books at the Bishop storyline. Anyway, I'm getting really rambly. This has been a really long clip as it is, but I wanted to catch you guys up on the best I could. I really think that starting from Feast of Fools, the series is going to get better. I don't know if I'm going to say that any of them are going to be a 5-star until probably closer to the end. Lord of Misrule is probably going to be one of the ones that are going to get closer, because I feel like I remember it being where once I got through like Midnight Alley and Feast of Fools, the series for me just had gotten better and better and better as I had continued to read the series. Like, I just remember the writing had been really good, and the overall story ended up actually working really well. Anyway, as far as tonight, I do not know what is going on, because Robert is currently, I think, sleeping, and we were planning on going to do laundry today, and I was planning on editing last week's vlog that I had actually recorded and had set up to edit, but none of the footage was good, so I decided to just scrap it. So I think what I'm gonna do is I might sit and pound a lot of Lord of Misrule today. Maybe at some point I'll go do laundry tonight if Robert is up to it, but I'm not gonna like count on it, because I know he's been kind of having a hard time with sleeping recently. Mostly because we've kind of had a weird sleeping schedule over the last couple weeks with going to the concert and all that stuff, and he's going to be being put on a new schedule for work starting tomorrow, so everything's kind of all topsy-turvy for him right now. So I'm going to go see what he wants to do, if he's even awake. Hey guys, so it is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, and I haven't really updated you guys because it's been kind of just a really weird week. I've been off and on like unwell because I don't know, my allergies tend to really mess with my body a lot, and so a lot of times I'm either doing okay or I have a headache and I don't really feel well. But as of yet, I have not finished Lord of Misrule. I think I'm going to be finishing it today though because I'm currently 129 pages in and there's just over 200 of this book, so I think I should be able to finish it today because I don't really have anything to do today. I really don't remember when it was the last time I updated you guys, but we got a little bit of snow over this past week. I did hear though that going into this next week though, there's supposed to be a lot more snow and ice, so if you are in the Midwest or maybe particularly Michigan, please be careful on the roads because I heard it's supposed to be a pretty severe cold snap coming in this next coming week. Friday, I ended up actually going to my parents' house for a night because I needed to go pick up something from Robert's house where his dad is, and he couldn't go because he works the night shift during the weekends and is actually going to be transitioning to working a night shift during the week instead. So because he had to work and everything, he couldn't go get what he needed from his dad's house, so I went Friday night to go get that, but his dad wasn't available, so I had to wait until Saturday during the day to go get it. So I basically got to go hang out with my parents and stuff for a night, and then most of the day Saturday. My parents have cats now. They got 2 cats over like a couple weeks ago, which was really fun. I did get to play with the cats, which was fun, but then Saturday I started getting a little sneezy and my eyes started itching really bad because I'm slightly allergic to cats. Just every now and then, like the pet dander and stuff will get into my eyes and make them really itchy, and then my nose gets very runny. So yesterday I was pretty much on Benadryl like almost all day, and so I was very sleepy. And then before I headed home at like 7 o'clock or so, and I started getting a headache, and so I got home at about like 8:15 in the evening, and I seriously slept. Like I had been sleeping off and on throughout the day, really. I got home at like 8:15, curled up on the couch here, and was watching the Luigi's Mansion 3 Let's Play that Jacksepticeye was doing, just to kind of catch myself back up with it. And I didn't get 5 minutes into that video before I actually ended up falling asleep entirely. And I think I slept for like a couple hours right here, and then I woke up at like probably 10 because Robert had called me, and then I fell back asleep again and woke up again like I think just after midnight. And then I think I remember doing this. I think at that point I had gotten up and just walked into the bedroom and went to bed. It's a little fuzzy, but yeah, I was not doing very well last night. I was so tired because of all the Benadryl I had taken over the course of the day. Like I really didn't have much, but Benadryl makes me very, very sleepy. I don't know why, but Lord of Misrule is not as captivating as I thought it was going to be. Feast of Fools, which was book 4, was really, really good, like probably one of the best out of the bunch so far, but Lord of Misrule's kind of taken a step back with that. It's kind of sitting at a 3-star because the writing's really still good. You know, it's actually getting better as the books go on, but there's not really a lot that's happened. It's basically just a lot of mass hysteria going on within this book because of the events that happen in A Feast of Fools. Things are kind of spiraling from there, so there's not really a lot that's happened. The most important thing that's really happened, I think, at this point is like there's something that is happening to the vampires that is having them go out into the daylight without them really realizing it, but it's not really that big of a deal because it has something to do with the fact that there's this big fight going on, so it's kind of like they're just being drawn to the fight basically. One thing I will say I really do not like about this is I'm getting so irritated with one of these characters in here. She's kind of like a secondary character, and her name's Monica Morell. Like she's basically like the high school bully of the whole thing. Like she's the girl that has basically been making Claire's life a living hell. And there's a certain line that came up in this book that it really exemplifies how childish this character continues to be and just really how dumb I feel like a lot of her dialogue is. Like I don't really like Monica in general, but I feel like Rachel Caine really hits home with the fact that she's a child, and it's not so much like it's a bad thing, it's really annoying. There's a point where like Monica's getting kind of after Claire about something, and she's constantly just, you know, fighting against what Claire tells her to do and all these things because it's like, you can't tell me what to do. And at one point she's like, oh, by the way, your clothes are pathetic. And, you know, like, you're in the middle of pretty much a town apocalypse and you're gonna start commenting on the clothing choice of somebody who's literally going out to probably save your life. I feel like a lot of the story for Monica specifically is just showcasing how much of a child she is, which we kind of got that, at the very beginning. We kind of understood that. There were some really shady things that she did at the very beginning of the series that indicate how ridiculous and how childish she is. But I kind of feel like some of the dialogue that's in some of these other books, it's just unnecessary to make her out like that because we already know how childish she is. So I'm kind of iffy with that. Like, I understand the point of why certain things that she says are put into this book and why Rachel Caine might have had her have some certain dialogue choices, but it's kind of overkill at this point. I'm gonna sit and enjoy the rest of this and see what I kind of think of, but at the moment it's kind of sitting at a 3-star compared to the last 2 books. Okay, so it is about 2:30 in the afternoon now, and I've just finished Lord of Misrule. I can tell it has really been a long time since I have read these books because I didn't realize that this was gonna not necessarily end the Bishop story. I think that the Mr. Bishop storyline does continue in at least the next book because the ending of this one really changes a lot of things because something happens to Claire that I didn't realize had happened. I do not remember it happening at all, and I thought that this was going to end up taking the story in a different direction, and it didn't. Things are still very much in Crazyville. What I said earlier about this story not really having much going on is still fairly true. There's not really a lot that happens in terms of the plot. The only real things that happen are that in the beginning of the story, Amile, the founder, basically tells everyone that they have their own jobs that they have to do because of the fact that the town is literally falling apart. So everyone has to go do their own thing, and what Claire has to do is go with Amile to essentially find Bishop and find Myrnin because Bishop has taken Myrnin, and they have to go find him. And once they do and everything, things kind of go from there. Amile ends up essentially going missing and they don't know what to do. And kind of from there, the story just kind of takes this point where nobody knows really what's going on or what's happening. So that's pretty much like finding Myrnin is like probably within the first like 40 to 50 pages, and then the rest of the book is mostly just trying to figure out what the heck to do. And then at some point in the book, there is this big tornado that's coming in, and it's kind of like also the real catalyst of the story because the tornado is kind of happening, and there's also the coming of this head of the story where Bishop and Amile are going to kind of fight, this big battle, and it's going to kind of set in stone what's going to be happening over the rest of the story or the next part of the story. Things do not end well is all I will say. Things really do not end well at all within this book, and things really happen that I honestly didn't even really remember. Like, I don't remember the story going in this direction at all, but again, it's been so long since I've read it that I probably had totally forgotten everything. As far as my rating of it, I feel like it's still definitely a 3-star because I feel like there just wasn't really a whole lot of the story that really had anything going on. It was kind of just following, everything that was happening and, Claire trying to figure out what exactly to do next. The writing definitely was better, but again, kind of going back to what I said about Monica, I feel like her character really hasn't changed a lot. She's definitely realized there's some really nasty things that are happening and she needs to be careful, but I don't think she really cares at this point because she hasn't really changed at all. And I still feel like that a lot of her dialogue is very juvenile, just still the same as it was in book 1. And I don't think that she ever really changes in the entire story. I really don't think that she does. And one thing I will say is with the plot is that did happen within the middle of the story is we understand that there are kind of 3 camps of thought really within this book. There is people that are still fighting for Amile, people that are fighting for Bishop, and now there is starting to arise a group of humans that are basically trying to overrun the vampires. They are the humans that basically want the vampires gone. They're not siding with either Amile or Bishop. They just want vampires in general gone. And that kind of leads into the idea of what happened earlier in the series with Shane's father, Frank Collins, kind of coming in. He's kind of the one that's been really starting that. And in this book, with everything that's been going on, that kind of ramps up in a lot of ways because Frank is thought to be in the town, even though nobody knows where he is. And with everything going on between Amile and Bishop, the humans are kind of we can kind of take care of ourselves. We can with all these vampires fighting against each other, now it might be time for us to kind of come up and take over this town like we should have years ago. This is a series where, like, this book in particular is kind of one of those weird middle ground stories where, like, there's not a lot that happens because everyone's trying to find out what exactly to do. I'm interested to see how Carpe Corpus goes now, because the way that Lord of Misrule ends kind of leaves it on a note where, like, Claire is no longer the kind of person we know her anymore. Like, the only thing I will say is that, to avoid spoiling it too much, is that she changes, not for the better. I will read the synopsis for Carpe Corpus because I think I might start this one at least a little bit today. I don't know how much, considering how early it still is in the day. An underground resistance is brewing in Morganville. In order to contain it, Bishop vows to obliterate the town and all its inhabitants, the living and the undead. Claire Danvers and her friends are the only ones who stand in his way, but even if they defeat Bishop, will the vampires ever be content to go back to the old rules after having such a taste of power? So I think this one is, again, kind of more one of those filler stories, but I feel like the way that the story ended for Lord of Misrule, there's going to be something that's going to bring Claire back to who she was before, and then kind of from there it's going to be like, what do we do now, and how are we going to solve this major problem we have? But are the vampires going to even want us to let things kind of make things go back to kind of how they were? Because some of them have definitely had a taste of power, and it's going to be very hard for them to go away from that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this vlog. My plan is that going into next week, I will finish Carpe Corpus and maybe at least one more book in the series. I don't know. It's going to depend on how things go. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.